Sharon, thank you for being here. Sharon Roggio is a multi-award winning film producer and director living in Los Angeles, California. She has been a member of three IATSE unions nationwide, not one, not two, but three IATSE unions, and has a bachelor's degree in communications with a focus in radio, television, and film. Her background includes large budget physical production on award-winning shows and films such as House of Cards, Parks and Rec, with Bob and David, Whip It, and Red Dawn. In 2016, Roggio associate produced and production designed Gook, a feature film that premiered at Sundance in 2017 and won the Audience Award in the next category. Congratulations, that's awesome. In 2018, when she heard about the 1946 mistranslation in the Bible, Roggio immediately quit all her other endeavors and has focused all of her time, money, and resources on producing and creating this documentary, and I would say also distributing this documentary. 1946 is Roggio's directorial debut. And so just as this is a little different than other webinars we've done in the past. Sharon has so kindly created actually a presentation to outline her entire case study and how she did what she did. And so that's going to be about 45 minutes, and then I'm going to join her for Q&A. We'll probably start with a lot of your questions, and which Sean in the background will be pulling up and organizing for us. And we'll see where the conversation takes us. So for now, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon, and I'm going to drop off Spotlight and turn everything over to Sharon. And again, thank you very much.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yes, I have a presentation. It just kind of helps me to be able to keep everything on track. So I have a lot of slides. I'm going to try to get through them as quickly as possible so that we're not spending a lot of time. But yes, we're here today talking about how to build an audience prior to going to release and what I was able to do with the film 1946, The Mistranslation That Shifted Culture. We're going to talk about how to navigate the mess and make an impact, defining your audience. It's not everyone. Mobilizing your audience, making the most of social media. And then your tactics might change, but your goals don't. My goals were always very clear. I just had to kind of shift gears as I was navigating distribution, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the rewards are indescribable, producing a great impact campaign, especially for a film like 1946. All right, so 1946 is a documentary film that follows tireless researchers who trace the origins of the anti-gay movement amongst Christians to a grave mistranslation of the Bible in 1946. It chronicles never before seen archives pulled from Yale University that pretty much show that there's no biblical basis for LGBTQIA prejudice. And as we know, the Bible has been weaponized not only against the LGBTQIA plus community, but countless groups. So once I learned of this mistranslation where they took two Greek words, malakoi and arsenokoitai, and combined them to mean homosexual, and what we discovered in the archives at Yale University is that the translation committee team actually admitted they made a mistake. They changed the translation, and then we go through the history on how the word spread into multiple translations and how then the conservative Christians had it in black and white. Look, it's the homosexuals who are the bad guys. And then it's been nuts since the 70s. So you'll have to see the film to kind of learn a little bit of the history. But my motivation to make this movie, these verses have been used against me, specifically the thesis verse, 1 Corinthians 6:9, which was the first verse to insert the word homosexual into the Bible. What the research shows is that the text is referring to an act, not a group of people. As I was saying earlier, the translation committee admitted that they made a mistake and they fixed it. It's literally the difference between condemning an act that has a victim on the other side and a group of people. Very different condemnation here. And my motivation was to make the world a better place for the next generation, turning my pain into change. It just clicked, it made sense. So I immediately quit my job and started investing all of my time and money to make this movie. So now let's go find the people to help us do it. The first thing that you need to do is define the need. This film had a very clear need, especially in America, but then also all over the world, as we see that Western religion, Christianity has spread around the world as far as evangelical ideology and one man, one woman doctrine, the biblical view on marriage, anti-trans things that we're seeing around the world, and of course, anti-LGBTQ, but also, as I was saying earlier, women's rights, voter rights, and all the like. So it is a little intersectional, but we stayed very true to the thesis. As you can imagine, trying to make a movie like this in 90 minutes, there's a lot of content, a lot of information. I had a very clear vision on what to put in, and we stayed pretty true to that thesis. So some of the stuff that we couldn't put in the film, we have done on extended resources, which we'll get into later. We're working on a book to answer the top questions that we couldn't put in the film, continuing to provide resources and educational tools for our audience. So when I first was like, oh my gosh, this is the Bible, right? The Bible is the most widely published book in the world. So as I was saying, earlier, define your audience. Well, I was a little bit naive and I'm like, well, this is for everyone. I still believe that this movie is for everyone, because whether you're religious or not, the Bible impacts our real lives and our society. And so, when I had these, we're the research team that discovered the archives at Yale University, and the first team to ask the question, who made this decision and why? So to me, this was a pretty significant discovery. And I was like, this is going to be worldwide distribution, Netflix, no question about it. And I was a little naive, but that's okay. We'll get into that in a second. What I learned quickly, I quickly realized that the game has changed, especially post COVID. After 2019, 2020, streamers have stopped buying content like this. Social justice impact films are just not moving. And a good example of that is the film that just won the Oscar this last year about the Palestinian and Israeli conflict. No one will touch that film. So social justice films have a hard time finding platforms. And there's a lot of research. My executive producing team, Evoke Media, just built a case study around this. It'll be coming out next week. I've linked their website down here, but we're going to have all of these links provided for you afterwards, so you can actually look at the citations of some of this data, and hopefully it doesn't discourage you. Again, we just need to pivot to find a way to get the film to the audience. And
We'll
so
also
let's
be we'll also be posting it on the Substack as well. So
perfect.
yeah.
That's great. So even if you do get distribution, right, they're most likely not going to give you anything near to what your film is worth or what you've put into your film. But then another major problem is no one's pushing it out for you. No one's marketing. There's no algorithm. Streamers usually prioritize big budget films or things with built-in buzz and trendy things like that. And so a lot of the times, if your film is picked up, you're just laying on a platform somewhere and the marketing is still left up to you. So we're going to watch a quick video here about that experience.
I mean, everybody dreams on getting global, international recognition on a major platform. But getting on those platforms isn't as easy as everybody thinks. At our world premiere, Doc NYC, we sold more tickets, and we still have sold more tickets than any film in their entire history. We've won now 25 audience awards in a festival year. Audiences love this film, and it was one after one after one of major distributors and major agencies that said, love the film, can't help you. But I didn't let it discourage us. Several months into it, when I was just like, this isn't working, it's not going anywhere, we're not finding the right distributor. We just did a DIY approach, working to find alternative distribution options, and then working on impact, which is really the most important thing in the film, like getting the film to the community, working with the community, providing them more resources, and providing them hope. It was a massive amount of work. But I would do it again in a heartbeat, and so would the entire film crew. I'm willing to do this for as many years as it takes to hit that global recognition that I know the film deserves.
Now I got to find
So
my.
Sharon, when we do the next video, just
Yeah.
as a heads up, we only heard that, we didn't see it for some reason.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's a shame, because it's a
Yeah.
good video.
Yeah, but we'll include it in the post link. So, I mean,
Okay,
the
great.
audio is, great content. So,
Well, it's a really good video. It's a shame you couldn't see it.
yeah.
The problem is now is I've lost my keynote. There it is. Okay, great. So we'll put that video in there. Hopefully the next video will play. If not, I don't know what we're going to do because I have some fun videos for you. Anyway, so the truth is that the system is just not built for independent, mission-driven or marginalized creators like us. And so what that means is that we have to be more than filmmakers. We're strategists, we're builders, we're entrepreneurs, we're community organizers and movement makers. And so here we are, right? But what we found out in some of the research that we're going to put in our Evoke Media presentation is this is not an issue of demand, it's an issue of distribution. 77 million people say that they're interested in independent film, but only 37 million actually watch it. So that's a 40 million person gap there. So in other words, your audience is out there. They're just scattered, underserved, and sick of scrolling, really. And so the challenge is reaching them, not through a broken system, but by building something smarter and more direct. Okay, so after you define your need, now we need to define our audience. So steps to building your audience. Know your audience and tap into your super fans. Who is going to be impacted the most by the content that you're creating? If it's a film about cancer patients, then you're obviously going to want to work within that specific group and organizations that work to treat those conditions and things like that. Engage with your audience, make it personal and get them involved. Have it be a movie made by the community for the community. We had hundreds of volunteers working on this film, which we'll get into in a little bit. Create a movie for people, by people. You can't do this alone. Don't be afraid to ask. Empower your audience, encourage engagement, inform your audience, give them updates, highlights, behind the scenes, Zoom meetings. We did, which I'll get into in a little bit, what our Zoom meetings did for us. In-person meetups, focus groups, extended resources, podcasts, also industry events, which we'll talk about in a little bit here as well. Using social tools, which tools are best for your audience? Social media was the catalyst for us and the success of this film. We raised about half of the funds through social media marketing. Newsletter posts, that's just, again, keeping your audience updated. And then sharing your story using your voice. Should I try a video again, or is that going to be
Well, I wonder if you do before you do it, I would do the share settings and see if
okay?
you optimize for video, and then also, the audio seemed fine. The other thing you might be doing is coming up in a different window, is what I'm suspecting, perhaps. And so you might need to see which when. So let's take a few moments. Why don't you click on that and just hit pause, and let's see if we can see. Yeah, so we're not seeing it. So you might want to see in your browser if it's, because I know it's a web video because I watched it yesterday. You see if it's showing up on a different screen, and you might have to change your share to that different screen.
Building an audience is the most important thing.
Yeah, I don't. It says it stopped sharing, so I'm not really sure how to get to that video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with hearing it
Okay,
because,
let's just hear it, and then all the videos will be available, and we're going to start releasing all of this on our Evoke Media case study. So here we go.
Building an audience is the most important thing for independent filmmaking. Where is your audience? Who is your audience? Knowing who your audience is would be the most important step. Don't be afraid to engage with them. Let people know what you need. A post that I did while we were filming at Kathy Boldock's house, and somebody's like, "You're making a movie about her work? I love her work." That ended up being a $54,000 donor. We were doing technical post-production and we got slammed with licensing fees that we weren't expecting. And I was like, what am I going to do? I just put it into a post. And literally the next day, a guy wrote me and was like, "Are you still making this movie? Do you need help? I can help you. What do you need?" And I was like, $25,000. And he sent us the money. From the start to finish, build your audience. That's where you're going to find your donors. That's where you're going to find your volunteers. You can't do this alone. People can't help you if you're not upfront with them, what your needs are. Put yourself out there, be upfront and honest, and people will respond.
You guys missed my cute cat in that video. And so sad because he's the best. Okay.
What's your cat's name?
His name is Ruben.
Oh, very
But
nice.
Ruben like the Jeep, Rubicon, not like a sandwich, because I'm that kind of lesbian. Just
Okay. All right. Okay. Got it.
All right,
Noted.
so how do I go back
Jeep.
to full screen? Huh?
No, I was just going Jeep, not sandwich, but go ahead.
Cheap, exactly. Okay. So know your tribe, right? Find the people who are as passionate about this project as you are. As I was saying earlier in one of the videos, I literally quit my job to make this movie and started investing everything that I had in it. And so if I feel as strongly about this, there's got to be other people that feel as strongly about this. Now, I don't have money, so I took out a loan. I started, just putting things on credit cards. And so my goal was like, all right, I got to find some rich angel donor out there, a gay couple or something, that has been impacted by this, and they're going to help me make this movie. So know your impact audience and who is most likely to fund your project. Know the need of the audience and how does your project connect with that community. Also, knowing the difference between an angel donor and everyday donors and what's the difference, right? And so those angel donors are the ones who are going to give you that $50,000, $25,000, $100,000, and they'll work through your fiscal sponsor, which we'll talk about in a little bit here, and get a tax deduction. But then there's everyday donors. I mean, we had 1,700 GoFundMe donors on this film, giving between $5 and $1,000. Most of them were $5, $10 donors. And that was monumental to the success of the film. So know the difference and be super appreciative and grateful. We had one person actually help me, one of our volunteers, has written every single person that has donated money to us and have given them a thank you response, which is really cool. I didn't have time to do that. And that was one way that I was able to use a volunteer to really help make an impact on this film. Don't be a spectator. Actively work within the community. The community will be able to tell if you're not part of the project, if this doesn't impact you, or if you're not part of the community, be honest with them. Let them know that this is an interest to you because the audience is not dumb. They're going to know if you're just capitalizing on something or you're a spectator, basically. Include and engage your audience in the process. Gather volunteers. You can't do this alone, and learn from industry professionals when possible. So it's still very important to do all the industry things. For me, that was working with the Independent Documentary Association, where they have a ton of resources there to teach you how to build your proposals, how to work with impact campaigns. There's a ton of resources there. Go to industry events, go to film festivals when you can, go to markets when you can. I know something like the Cannes Film Festival is probably not as accessible for some people going to France and things like that. I just got back from the Cannes Film Festival, and but that's okay. You don't have to go to these big markets to find the help and the support that you need within the industry. You can literally find it within your community. So tap into the things that are available to you and find what's available within your community, because there are resources within your community. Okay, so the strategy, getting started. Right away, I turn to social media because, again, I don't come from money. I have no resources. I just have an idea and I need help making it. So I turned to social media and immediately just started making a smart marketing campaign, branding campaign, creating a logo, taglines, consistency within the branding, getting out newsletters. We did a GoFundMe campaign and then working with partnerships. We'll talk about the crowdfunding in a little bit here, but these are very important steps. YouTube and Google are your friends. Research how to do social media platforms, hashtags, features, trends, all that stuff. I call it YouTube University, which is my favorite free school. Plan a viral campaign. You guys might remember the Fire Island. They had that orange square, which I'll show you in a slide earlier, and it went viral and everybody went nuts. Now, obviously, we know Fire Island was a big flop, but that's okay. Their social media campaign worked and they sold tons of tickets. So what's going to work for your group and your campaign? Share the social media with your audience, with your leads, with your talent, your producers, your subjects. Get them to help create content and or just share your content. Do lives as much as you can. Lives help push out your content. You find new followers. Community Zooms, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and how we used our community Zooms. Special events, updates, connecting with like-minded people, influencers to help post your content, and they can help increase your numbers. Do as many podcasts and YouTube interviews as you can to get your message out. I know this sounds like a lot of work. We wear so many hats as producers and have so many things to do, but it really is important to continue to put that message out there and find people that can help you. That, as I said earlier, that is literally how we raised half of the money for this movie, just through social media marketing. Post as often as you can, build a social media strategy, calendar post. There's got great apps and tools that you can use to help you work across different platforms. So engage with those. Again, use YouTube University to research some of this stuff and see what works best for you. Engagement is key. You want people to like, follow, share, repost, DM, comments, and encourage people to comment. So again, learn how to use these tools and put them to use. Peer-to-peer campaigns and fundraisings, competitions, giveaways, merchandise, all these different little things that you can do to make it engaging, fun. We had a peer-to-peer fundraising campaign that we launched on TikTok. We raised about $35,000 in a month. And there was, we had a giveaway in there, a competition where the person who raised the most money could come and spend a day with the filmmakers. And we actually, our winners came and spent a day with us in Nashville when we did a focus group screening, which we then combined as a fundraising event. So that was a really good reward for them. And they're, of course, are super fans and have been supporting the film for years. And just really great connection, right? But those focus groups are really important too, not only to help get the content of your film on point, you know, hearing from the audience what works, what doesn't work, etc. But those focus groups we turned into fundraising events. And one screening we raised 6,000, another screening we raised 50,000. And I don't really remember what we raised on the third one. We did 3 focus group screenings. So it was pretty successful. And really we learned something wildly important about the execution of the film. In our film, we have the people who are talking about the mistranslation are either gay, women, or people of color. And we already know that the evangelical audience is not going to listen to any of those 3. So we accidentally had set up the white evangelical to be the bad guy. Spoiler alert, they're the bad guy, but we couldn't have them be the bad guy in our film. So I had to reevaluate. And then what we did is we brought in a New Testament Greek scholar who looks like the hardest audience to penetrate, no pun intended. And so we put him in there. His name's Dr. Trevor Thompson. And so finally we had a white, straight, cis man who affirmed the same things that we were saying to help us kind of reach that unreachable audience. Okay, using social media. We'll do one more video just because I have him here, and then we'll talk about navigating social media.
Not only am I from Philly, but I'm Italian. Are the hands too much? It's the Italian thing. Thick skin kind of runs in my blood. And having that thick skin is the only way I think that I was able to really survive, especially the social media part of it, because we got slammed. I mean, before the movie was released, podcasts, radio shows, sermons, people just saying how much our movie was dumb, wrong, bad, calling us names, not taking it personally and being able to see the pain behind the comments of the people leaving them and turning it into a lesson to put into the film really then afforded us to make the better movie. If I weren't that South Philly Italiano, thick-skinned woman, it probably wouldn't. It probably would have been a little different story.
All right. Not everybody has thick skin to be able to put up with all of the nonsense that we had to put up with. Keynote. I got to hit keynote. There you are. And I mean, we had somebody write an entire book about our movie based on our website. And it's called the 1946 Project. You can buy it on Amazon. I don't recommend it. It's an awful book. And it's just really dogma. And we have the data. So all these apologists and dogmatic people really attacked us. But hey, it was free press, you know, and thank God for my thick skin. So through our audience outreach, we're actually able to grow a massive audience. We have 200,000 followers on TikTok, almost 50,000 followers on Instagram. I don't really use the other platforms as much. I'm starting to do more YouTube, especially now that we're about to launch on YouTube and Apple TV worldwide, which we'll talk about when we get into distribution. So I'm really working on bumping up our YouTube. YouTube is a really great resource and something that, you know, it's really, there's only so much time that you can do. And so I use TikTok and Instagram the most. But when we were doing our impact campaign, every home in America, and I don't know about around the world, but everyone had YouTube on their smart TVs and everyone was playing it. So YouTube is a really great resource to do shorts and videos. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get into the impact campaign. Linktree is the link you can put in your bio. They've got other things as well. That's very helpful. And then our MailChimp, we have 50% engagement, if not more, on our MailChimp. And now we've got 15,000 subscribers, which I'll tell you how we got those as we go on. So really quickly, just some of the things that you can learn through YouTube. These slides are a couple years old. I did a presentation for Women Make Movies a couple years ago. And so some of this stuff changes. Like hashtags have changed every day, but knowing and understanding how the algorithm works, how it works for each specific social media platform, because they're different. TikTok's different than Instagram, etc. And knowing what a reel does, what a post does, and how to use them. So spend a little bit of time researching this stuff. Spend a little time to see how hashtags have changed and when to use them and when not to use them. Again, some of this stuff may have changed slightly, but you get the idea. And then here's just a quick little slide on how the branding with hashtags works and how it's broken down. Trends and multi-platform. I can't see this slide because they've got this thing in the way, but getting on trends is really important too. It seems really silly. I mean, I'm in my 40s doing TikTok, and you know, you think that it's kids dancing and stuff, and some of the trends were a little silly, but they worked. I mean, we got, you know, over, I mean, millions of views on our TikTok and tons of engagement. So it might seem a little bit silly, but sometimes the trends really help push out your content. Make it specific for whatever social media platform you're working on. For example, we talked about YouTube earlier. YouTube Shorts, they really only want the vertical, the 9.6, you know, and so what's the difference? How do you work with them on the different social media platforms? But then also there's tons of apps that you can use that help you create this content. CapCut is one for TikTok and Reels creation, so you can actually edit in your phone. A lot of these apps too, I learned, they don't like polished content. So if you're creating something in Premiere and you export it and then upload it, it might not get as much engagement as you just walking around and doing, like, you know, creating it in the app. A lot of the apps want you to create it in the app. So learn the difference, see how they work, and play around with it. And don't be afraid to make mistakes, honestly, you know, and there's tons of places that you can post, find which one works best for you. Then make it consistent. Let your brand be shown, your message be heard, and keep it consistent, but also make it fun. Have it be engaging. We had some really cool, fun videos. We also had some informative videos you see down here, or the timeline of the edit, you know, just different things like that. It gets people involved in the process as you're going.
Support the idea of getting married.
Sorry about that. Make it informative, especially for an impact film like this, or if we were talking about a cancer film earlier or something like that, like where's the research going? What are the new medicines out there, or whatever it is? Make it informative for your audience so that they feel they're getting something out of it even well before the film is released. Make it community. We talked about the Zoom meeting. So basically what happened was in 2019, we were ready to go. In 2020, COVID happened. And so we had to pause production, and we ended up opening up community Zooms. We did bi-monthly community Zooms, one with hosts in the United States and then others with hosts in Europe, and just try to make connections with people who are working in this industry, working to dismantle misinformation and disinformation, specifically around the Bible. And so we would have guest hosts come in, and so it's not just me talking all the time. We had people all around the world come in and be our special guests. And so that afforded us an opportunity to make connections with the audience. We also got to hear from the audience. We would hear what their questions were. And of course, I let people know we were recording it. And then if they gave me permission, that gave us content to post. So now we're posting from the community, about the community, on how this impacts them directly. We also then heard from experts, and I was able to cut up all the little clips from our Zooms and put it into TikTok posts and things like that. That was super beneficial. And then from there, honestly, with this community that we built in 2020, we had a prayer team come out of it. There was a group of women that were praying for us every week, every Tuesday for 3 years. It was amazing. And then we had a research team come out of it. We had people help me with social media. As I mentioned, we have Asher, who's helped me thank every single donor, organize all of those names, et cetera. And so, as you can imagine, it's so much work. And without this community, we would be so far behind. So make it community. Here's the building a viral campaign. This is the Fire Island we talked about, and this went nuts. I think what they had is a celebrity ended up like posting it, and then it went nuts. So if you can work with other social media influencers, somebody that you know that has a big following, ask them to jump on board. That's going to help you. This was our social media viral campaign all together now, National Coming Out Day, what happened in 1946. And we tried to get everyone that we know to repost this on the same day so that it would just spread across social media. We did Day of Giving, Tuesday, Day of Giving. And so we built slides around it, and we're doing posts about giving, letting people know if you're not asking and letting them know what you need, they're not going to know, so don't be afraid to ask and put it out there. All right, so your network in action. Here we go. Okay, so once we had that audience in place, and we'll talk about working with brands and working with organizations and things like that, but we had started to build a constituency of audience members all around the United States and all around the world. And so we built this slide to kind of show, while we were working with distribution, some of the states where we have a massive amount of support, where we could mobilize our ambassadors to help us let people know there are screenings, let people know we're at film festivals, let people know we're on Eventive. Whatever it is that we were doing, we really mobilized our ambassadors the most when we did our impact campaign, because we had no money for marketing. And so we were reliant on our community to let people know that we're going to be in your town. And so that's how we really used our ambassadors. We now have ambassadors all over the world. We went to Singapore and dealt with the only affirming church in the nation. And it took about 2 months for my visa to get approved. And the government came to the screening to make sure that I wasn't saying anything controversial, because in my visa agreement, I wasn't allowed to talk about anything controversial. And I'm like, I'm getting arrested. But it ended up working out great. And from there, our Singaporean friends connected us with some people from China. And we did go to mainland China, or the film did. We weren't able to go, but our team went to Taiwan. We went to Bangkok. We went to Hong Kong. And so those were actually in-person screenings. We have a huge connection now and there. And this whole group in Asia is now doing their own queer Christian conferences and working to dismantle misinformation and disinformation, working with some of the groups that we work with here in the United States. We've played all over Canada. We're about to go to South Africa. We're working with Nigeria now. Europe, we've had some success in. We've played in all of these countries. We're looking to play in more. We're working on Portuguese right now. We have the Spanish subtitles done, Japanese, Korean, Thai. We have Dutch, we have French. And I think that's it right now. We're working on more. If anybody else wants to help us create some languages, that's another thing we did with our audience. The people on this list here helped us with the nuance of the translation. So we weren't just relying on AI or a company to create our language accessibilities in other languages. We actually worked with the community so that they can understand the nuance. For example, when we were doing the French subtitles, the person we were working with was like, we don't really talk about affirming theology, which is one of the things that we talk about in the film. And so we had to find the best way to get that expression across. So it's really important. Again, you have your audience, they can help you with these things and help you reach that nuance. Okay, building partnerships. This is where you're really going to be able to grow your audience because these organizations have audiences. We were very fortunate to get Mary Lambert, who is a queer Christian musician. She did a song called by Macklemore called Same Love that's been all over the world. She did our entire score for us and has written an original song. And so her connection, we actually did a video with Mary Lambert for our GoFundMe campaign, which really helped because she had a little bit of a celebrity name. She has a following, and that really helped us push out the film. So who are you connecting with? Who's gonna be able to be your partner in this? We ended up getting into documentary film legal clinic, which was huge for us. It took us years to get accepted into anything. I mean, I was doing grant writing, proposal writing, and I'm a first-time film director, right? So it's a little bit trickier for an organization to give me the grant, right? But we were very fortunate to get into the documentary film legal clinic. They did all of our fair use for free. We also then were with Keller Turner, this agency here. They were our lawyers. They did everything pro bono. The guy who runs, Jason Turner is his name, second on the list there. He is a gay Christian who lives in Nashville and ended up just saying, I want to help you with this movie, right? Free mom hugs. We utilized their when we did our impact campaign, which we'll talk about in a little bit, their massive email list and all of the people they're connected with all around the United States help us fill the seats. And those are just a couple examples. GLAAD has also been very supportive of our film, which I'm super grateful for. So connect with partners, work with partners. Another really important thing too is if you haven't done all this social media stuff, let's say your film is done and you have the rights and you're trying to still reach your audience, you can work with an organization like Free Mom Hugs, for example, and say, hey, let's do a screening together on Eventive and or another platform or whatever, and you're going to sell single issue tickets. Maybe you do a Q&A afterward, and you work with an organization where you split the proceeds or you do a 70-30 split or whatever it is, and they have 100,000 followers on their email list. So you get their email list, they email their audience about the screening, you get ticket sales and you start growing your audience from there. So work with brands, work with organizations that are like-minded to help you grow your audience. Live events. This is another really important key aspect. The social media stuff is important, yes. The Zoom meetings were very important, yes. But we got the other half of our film funding, which we put $650,000 into the creation of this film, from conception to completion through post. And half of that money came from in-person outreach. So I went to these, or first of all, I never even heard of a gay Christian before. Like this was like an oxymoron to me, you know, it's like, there's no such thing as a gay Christian. And then I discovered there's so many people doing the work well before me. So we went to the Reformation Project, Out Christian, Q Christian Fellowship, and there's actually like dozens of them in the United States. And as I was saying, now our friends in Singapore are working with our friends in Thailand, and they're doing their own queer Christian conference. I was contacted by a group in Europe, and it's a European forum of queer Christians, and they wanted me to come to Italy to do a screening. We weren't able to connect, but we're going to try to do it again this year. So whatever your film subject is, I'm sure that there are resources and outlets for you. Find them and get into the mix. So the first conference we went to, we ended up, you see our booth here. I rented a TV, we had promotional material, we had the step and repeat, and we just made it. So this conference, we actually had our first movie trailer, but the first one that we went to, I had nothing. So I just did a visual trailer with a friend. I asked a friend to make a visual trailer, and it was just words on the screen that was just pretty dramatic about all the awful things that homosexuals have been called, you know. And at a conference like that, it resonated. And that first conference that I went to in January 2019, we started filming in the fall of 2018. 3 months later, I met Todd and Teresa Silver, who are our executive producers. They're up in the corner there. They have given us well over $200,000 to create this movie. And so they came up to our booth and they were like, you know, I just did Dan Carslake's film, which Dan Carslake's first film was For the Bible Tells Me So, which won Sundance in 2012. And so I'm like, you're kidding me. Like, Dan is like one of my heroes. Well, he had just done a sophomore film called For They Know Not What They Do, which premiered at Tribeca. And Todd and Teresa Silver have a gay son. And they have been getting all of they've been, you know, working with Christian organizations for years. And now they're not so welcomed because they're affirming queer people, right? And so they had to reassess on what to do with their money. And they started investing in these kinds of stories. So they came up to my booth and were telling me this, and I was like, okay. And then 6 months later, I got an email from Dan Carslake as he was vetting me for them to make sure that I would be the right fit and a right investment, right, for them to give me the money to make this movie. From there, I was like, Dan, you should be our executive producer. You've already worked with Todd and Teresa. It's my first film. It'll give them peace of mind knowing that you're going to guide me through this. And so the first $50,000 from Todd and Teresa turned into $90,000 because then I'm like, you know what? We need to now pay Dan. So if you want to sign on, let's get Dan on board too. Give us a little bit more money and let's do this project. And they said yes. And so that's how that happened. So don't be afraid to ask and get yourself out there. Okay, crowdfunding goals. So when we first started our crowdfunding, which is a very important piece of this puzzle, again, the angel donor, Todd and Teresa, versus the everyday donor, the $5 donor. So the people who are going to buy merch. Merch was a huge part, as you can tell from all of the slides in our marketing campaign. Because honestly, like we're at film festivals and people have the 1946 pin, or it's on the back of their phone or something like that, right? And they're like, what's 1946? It just starts up a conversation. So that physical marketing was a big part early on, but then the GoFundMe marketing is how you get the money in, right? So find out which GoFundMe or whatever crowdfunding platform works best for you. We chose GoFundMe because it's still up today. People still donate, even though the movie's done, which is great because it helps us with our impact campaign. And there's no restrictions, there's no limitations. Where something like Kickstarter, you have to understand the rules. If you don't make your goal, that money goes back to the donors. Some of these crowdfunding tools are good if you know you can get the money, but then they're not so good if you don't get the money. So just know which one you're getting into and which one is best for you. All right, and then we talked about merch here. We've got tons of products on our website, and then when we're in person, we bring stuff when we can. But I usually just do the stickers and the pins as free giveaways, and this just helps a little bit. We don't make a lot of money with the merch, but as I was saying, it really does help because people wear the shirts at pride parades or at their church and things like that, and it gets people talking. All right. We talked earlier about industry support. So as much as you need your audience, you need your volunteers, you need your super fans to help you make this movie, to help you spread the message, to help like all your content, etc. You have to still be working within the industry. So we went to Doc NYC, only in New York, which is you have to apply and then get accepted, but it's an opportunity to go and pitch your project, to meet potential donors, to meet potential streamers and things like that. Our Doc NYC only in New York experience led us to get with, which I don't have the Film Collaborative on here, which is shocking. I should. The Film Collaborative is our festival representation. Jeffrey Winters is our rep, and we met Jeffrey at the Only in New York event. And so that was really instrumental because working with something like the Film Collaborative, who programs your film for festivals, we ended up getting paid to play instead of us having to pay to submit our film to all the different festivals, which saved us thousands of dollars, but also gave us money. And Jeffrey was also able to get funding for me to go to the film festivals, which was great. So having a film festival representation was amazing. We also at Only in New York ended up meeting Evoke Media, who put together the videos that unfortunately you can't see on this presentation, but you'll get to see later. And they ended up being our executive producers. And we're still working together today, which is amazing. And I'm sure that they'll support my next film, which I'm definitely working on. So get involved with the industry. This one over here, a documentary film by Sharon Roggio with a list of the contents. This is the core application that I was talking about with IDA, the Independent Documentary Association. And the core application is a really useful tool that basically gives you the guidelines of what a grant application will look like. So you put together your core application and then you can adjust it accordingly to all the different grant applications that you're writing for. But you really want to start with the core, know exactly what your artistic approach is, your impact, all of the different things, your visuals, have it laid out in words. It's a really great exercise. And I rewrote that proposal probably a dozen times in the 4 years. As the film evolved, as we evolved, I kept that document kept evolving, but it's a really important document to have. So utilize resources. What you're doing right now is a big step, like being here today at this course. So you guys already know, I don't need to tell you. Okay. Industry marketing. So get yourself up on platforms as much as you can. We were on Film Freeway, we were on the D Word, we're on IMDb, Letterboxd. What's that other one? Rotten Tomatoes, you know, all of that stuff. We got into Women Make Movies. So immediately you want to put yourself up on that platform, whatever it is that you're working with. Just so filmmakers can find you. And the D Word was actually a way that we were able to find our crew, our work for hires. So utilize industry marketing tools. Here's just an example of some of our Rotten Tomato comments, our IMDb. So another thing we did is when the movie was at film festivals, I did social media posts asking people to leave comments. Leave it on Letterboxd, leave it on Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, so that we can get a better score. Now, our score is not 9.3 anymore, because I've pissed a couple people off and we got a couple zeros in there, but that's okay. I'm not mad at them. They can be angry all they want. And then we were talking about unsolicited press. I mean, we had tons of unsolicited press. These two videos over here on the left-hand side, millions of views. Insane, you know, and then all of the people claiming, you know, that our 1946 movie is irrelevant. I mean, I have a whole list of all these nonsense people out there that wrote these articles, but hey, I'll take the free press. So like, I think I'm doing something right. All right. So, all right, good. I got rid of that. So as I was saying earlier, I really believed that this film, it would be a no-brainer for us to get on Netflix, as the Bible impacts the entire world, whether you're religious or not. But I was a little naive, had to take a step back and then just kind of reassess. All right, how am I going to get this movie direct to the audience? How am I going to do an independent distribution? Like, what are we going to do? And so let's watch one quick little video here. And then we'll talk about that. Hold on one second. This video is not. Just take a second. It has to download. It's not linked properly. I'm almost on the slide, so I'm doing pretty well. I've got a lot of slides, so I was worried that it would be a little bit longer, but I think we're doing pretty well here. All right, this video, thank you. This video is called Hats. Here we go.
You have to be a little crazy to do a film like this. You do have to reinvent yourself as you're going through. And if you don't have the money to pay for somebody to do the job, you have to figure it out how to do it yourself. I wore many hats on this film, from producing, directing, writing, editing. I had to learn so I could do all the social media content, then social media manager. I'm doing TikToks in my 40s. Like, who am I? You know, the fundraising, the grant writing, which is exhausting. Another big hat that I have is set mom. I'm very good at taking care of people. Well, really, they call me dad. I'm set dad. But that's another story. Wearing all the different hats can be exhausting. It was a massive amount of work, but I would do it again in a heartbeat, and so would the entire film crew.
All right. All right. So as we were saying, if you don't have the money to pay for it, you have to do the work yourself if you're going to get involved with especially a social justice film like this. And so remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and be prepared to do the work. But if you believe in it as much as I did, it's very rewarding. Okay, so once we decided we needed to do this distribution strategy on our own, we put together a proposal. I've got tons of different proposals. I'm constantly writing different proposals, but we did a whole distribution and marketing proposal, working still to find that right partner and or how do we grassroots this thing. So I put together this slide to let our donors know what we were doing. We're going to utilize our PR team. We were with 42 West and our agent Scott Feinstein to promote and increase public interest. We will utilize our festival impact and educational distributor, the Film Collaborative, which I mentioned earlier. And through the Film Collaborative, outside of the festival circuits, we've done over 100 screenings in churches, conferences, etc. And they work then to book the film for us, which is great, taking that responsibility off my plate. Also taking that negotiation part off my plate where, it's really hard to, as the filmmaker, to play that, it's like people need to rent the movie, and so I'm constantly giving it away for free. So don't ask me, go to Jeffrey. No, I'm just kidding. We want to continue to work with our social media, attracting influencers to help us get the word out about the film, using our large social media following with grassroots promotion, which we talked about earlier with the ambassadors, and really utilizing that audience that you've built and those relationships that you've built with the partnerships that you've built, and mobilizing them at the right time. Obviously, we want to make sure that when we're using volunteers and we're working with partners, we don't want to exhaust our volunteers or our partners. And so I was very specific with our volunteers. Everybody had one job and left it at that, so that nobody got burnt out, and people would come and go because they've got other jobs and things like that. But keeping it simple, keeping it very targeted is important. And then not over asking your partners for help, knowing when and how to utilize that is pretty important. And then, so this was my kind of idea about touring with different partners. I put it all together, but we still hadn't at this point put anything into action. So this is just a slide really quickly of all the festivals that we've won. And so once, I realized the film was doing so well with audiences, I'm like, okay, and we're selling out film festivals. I mean, and all of our Eventive sales, I'm like, how do we then now bring this to market, to the commercial market, since we're not getting any distribution offers? And so what I decided to do is try to get recognition from peers. So I contacted Todd and Teresa Silver, and instead of asking them for more money, I asked them to give me a recoupable investment that I would pay them back, knowing that we're selling tickets at film festivals. Eventive basically called me and said, look, you're giving the money to these film festivals. Stop doing the digital sales at the film festivals and launch your own release. And I'm like, you're right. We have the audience. I know we can sell the tickets. So I called Todd and Teresa Silver and I said, give me $50,000 for a loan so that I can rent theaters, we can hire our PR team, and we can apply for the BAFTAs and the Oscars to try to get peer recognition and also press. That was the main goal of the Oscar and BAFTA campaign. We did qualify for both the Oscars and the BAFTAs. We played in New York City, Los Angeles, and London. And we were on both platforms. So I know Academy members were watching the film. I went back to the British Film Institute after our film played BFI in 2023. I was back there. I was actually at the London Film Festival in 2023, and I was recognized by a BAFTA member, and she told me she loved the film and she told all of her friends to watch it. So I'm like, great score. I hope it was worth the $10,000 that we put into the London campaign. But so yeah, so that was what we decided to do. It's not right for everyone because it is very expensive to pay to play, to four-wall the theaters. And the most expensive thing for us was our PR team. Our PR team was $52,500 for 3 months. But we got into the Advocate, we got into the Guardian and some other great publications. And we were able to pay back the money in a couple months through our ticket sales. So it was worth it. So let's see, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything on this slide. Okay, so once we did our commercial release, we released in theaters December 1st, 2023, which is my birthday. I did that on purpose. And then I knew we would, with the holidays coming up, and this is a holiday film, I mean, what better way to talk about what, religion and the Bible at Christmas, right? With your non-affirming family or your conservative family. And so we did a whole, which I should have put those slides in here. We had some really fun slides promoting our virtual theatrical release, which is what we called it, a limited virtual theatrical run, because we didn't want to call it a streaming run because we still were looking for that potential partner to get us on a streaming platform. So this was a limited virtual theatrical run. We had it up for 3 weeks, but then I kept it going silently without really promoting it again, because I'm looking for that distributor, don't want people to think that the film is released. But I didn't want to withhold the film from the audience. So in the end of December, right before Christmas is when we launched. We had it up for 3 weeks, and then I kind of silently kept it up. And part of my strategy too was to mobilize watch parties. And so on our Eventive page, we had a drop-down menu that actually encouraged groups to give us a higher rate. If you got 50 people in the room, give us $100 and not the $12.95 ticket price, so that we can actually recoup some of our money. You can help support the film and, don't have 100 people watching the movie for $12. And it worked, and people honored it. And honestly, on Eventive too, you can opt to have donations made. So some people would rent the film and then give a donation, or, and so it was a really great way to recoup some of this money. So in 6 months, we sold 6,000 single tickets, organized 500 watch parties across 25 countries, and grossed $118,000, covering all of our expenses, repaying the loan that we had, and really helping to build that film's momentum. Which was pretty amazing. So Eventive, and actually they told us too that we were in the top 5 films screened on their entire platform in 2024. And they worked with the IDA Get Real conference, mentioning us as a case study, and Eventive has done an entire case study on our film, which I won't click the link just in case it takes us to a page you're not going to see, but we'll put this event case study link in the assets that you'll get at the end of this. This is just a quick slide to show you the Eventive drop-down menu that we created. Eventive is really easy to use as far as putting in your film and setting your price, setting your territories. We had it worldwide. And then I came up with these prices. I just kind of made them up, and it worked. The slides on the right here are all the countries that we were able to play in. They don't represent actually all of the countries because we hit 25 different countries in that 6 months. But the really cool thing also about a programmer like Eventive or a platform like Eventive is you get to keep all of your assets. You get to keep all of the data, where something like Amazon, Hulu, you'll never see any of that data at all. So that's how our email list grew. That's why we know who was watching the film, how long they were watching the film, where they were watching the film, the demographics, etc. And getting that data is priceless, really. Okay, so another thing to think of it wasn't like we didn't have offers. We did have some distributors who wanted to work with us. They were over promising and I felt they were going to under deliver. Remember earlier we were talking about it's still up to us to market our film. So it's just going to get lost on a platform somewhere. I've also heard horror stories of people who have not been paid, or, there's tricky language in the contracts and you just don't see a dime. Another thing that was going on with all of these distributors is they want to own your content for 15 to 20 years. And so I walked away from all of these deals because they weren't right for us. The things that I was hearing from the industry and from people within Netflix and my executive producer and all of the articles that I was reading, which again, we'll link in the notes for you at the end of this, is that streamers are not buying this. So anybody was like, oh yeah, I can get you on Netflix. If you weren't WME or you weren't, Submarine or one of the big distributors out there, it's probably highly unlikely that you're going to get us on Netflix. So they were just fluffing us, and I'm not going to give up the rights to the film for 20 years So we walked away from the deals and trying to still figure out what was going to be right for us and who can actually get us on these platforms. So we decided again to do our own direct to audience, and we turned we call it eventize everything, where we made everything an event and made it feel urgent and important and community, creating visibility, having Q&As, whether they were panels, if I wasn't there, from other local community leaders or religious leaders, etc., religious trauma people, or I would go and do the Q&As myself. We also did a lot of virtual Q&As to help encourage community and screenings. We already talked about this, connecting with like-minded organizations, working out a donation and a split with them, utilizing their mailing list to build an audience, and donating a portion of those tickets to that organization. It's a win-win for everybody. And so again, if you don't have the audience, if you haven't built it at this point, you can still build it through your partnerships and use a platform like Eventive to host screenings and maybe do a Q&A afterward and make it a big event and just continue to build your audience that way. We already talked about this as well, as far as having all of the, well, first of all, our amazing success on the platform, but then also being able to collect all of that data, which was really important for us. Okay, so the impact campaign. So really, social justice films and impact is kind of like a new division of documentary filmmaking, a way to get your film to the audience that needs it the most. And so a lot of documentary films are packaging their film and structuring it from the beginning, thinking of the impact campaign. And so the next film that I'll be making, I'll kind of work backwards, thinking of the impact first and how to get it to the audience, and this whole social media thing that I was able to do, and definitely be putting in some of these ideas in your budget, because it's very expensive, as you can imagine, to go on the road and do an impact campaign. But getting the film to the audience is important. So I'll tell you how we did it after we watch or listen to this one video.
Well,
what's that?
I was just going to say, maybe not.
Actually,
It's 5. So since people are going to probably look at these later, I think we should
okay.
just proceed and try to, if you can, we should try to leave 15, 20 minutes for questions if possible.
Okay, no, you got it. Okay, so we'll watch the impact video later. Guys, please watch them because they're fun. And again, you'll get to see my cute cat. Okay. Okay, so our impact campaign is what we did is we decided to go on the road in America during the 2024 presidential election, utilizing the film as a tool for civic engagement. And what we did is we picked 15 cities. We spent 32 days in this RV with a crew of 6, going to cities highly impacted by extremist ideologies. And so we didn't pick safe cities. We didn't pick cities where we had a lot of resources in, all those ambassadors that I talked about, right? We picked cities like, for example, in Frisco, Texas. Frisco banned the most books out of any county in the United States in 2023. Frisco was right outside of Dallas. Now, if we went to Dallas, tons of resources, right? Frisco, it took us about a month and a half, maybe 2 months to even get communication back from a church to host us. So it was an ambitious campaign. It was an expensive campaign, but it really paid off. We put about $70,000 into this campaign, and that was about half of the money that we would actually need to do a campaign like this. And the only reason why we were able to keep the budget so low, which it's a lot of money, but it still is pretty low. When you have 6 people that you're paying in an RV that takes, $170 to fill, and housing everyone, feeding everyone, etc. What we did is we spent months in pre-production. And so we picked all the cities, but we didn't have any locations set out, and we didn't have money for locations. So we spent months contacting locations to get all the locations for free. Once we found a location or a church to host us, they're like, okay, what else do you need? And I'm like, well, we are going to be hungry at about 1 p.m. on Sunday. And so do you have anybody who will feed us? And also, we have a crew of 6. Do you have anybody that can house us? We need to be able to park the RV safely, because obviously we can't park this on the street where people are going to Google the movie and then they're going to find out we're homosexuals on the road, and then we could get assaulted or something like that, or the RV could get compromised. And so we needed a place to park the RV. And so we just started asking the community for help. And one by one, city by city, we got all the help that we needed. So we got all of our locations, with the exception of 3, for free. We got most of our housing for free. Most of our meals were covered. And so that really helped make a difference. And so we paid for the editing. We ended up filming the whole thing. I'm a filmmaker, of course, we had to film it. And so that's afforded us an opportunity to continue to create content. So we now have a web series, 1946, The Culture Shift Tour, which is on YouTube and Apple, Spotify, and things like that, to just continue to put out more information about this film. And we interviewed 40 people on the road. And we also had a keynote speaker with us talking about how the Bible has been hijacked and weaponized, especially in America, with Christian nationalism and against all the things, women's rights, reproductive rights, voter rights, immigration rights, and things like that. So we turned it into a conference as well. Very successful campaign, and I'm looking to do it again. We did apply for a grant, and hopefully we'll get that grant and we can go back on the road. But this is what we decided to do. Okay, so we already talked about kind of all this. These are just some slide examples as you're marketing your film. When we were going on the road, we're like, okay, we need help. So I did, again, make another proposal. And this was just an idea of a way that somebody, if they wanted to sponsor us, we could play a video before an advertisement before the movie, and we can give you promotion on the road and things like that. We ended up not getting a sponsor, but it was worth the effort, and still, like just one of the ways to try to find a way to pay for this. Here is what we did for our commercial campaign. So the one slide with all of the logos down there, those are the sponsors that we had during the creation of the film. And so that's at the end of the movie. We get to list all of our sponsors and donors. And the top slide there is just while we were in production, we had some tiers of levels that people could donate, and they would be able to get resources out of that, or a copy of the film, a meeting with me, whatever it was. And so we had that going on. And then the slide on the left here is when we did our commercial campaign. We were trying to get people to help pay for it. And so I put together a whole proposal on how you could, if you were a company, we ended up having the marquee outside of the Prince Charles Theater in London. And it's like, okay, do you want to put your name up there and advertise and things like that? Again, nobody sponsored us that way, but that's okay. We found other ways to get sponsored. And so my name was up on the marquee because they couldn't fit the name of the movie. So they put Sharon, Roggio, director. So that was not a vanity thing. That was just that we paid for it, and they couldn't put the name of the movie. So anyway, but so just be creative is my point. Find ways to work with partners, to work with brands, to work with people who might want to help, and give them advertising opportunities and things like that. We're building extended resources, as I mentioned earlier, things that we weren't able to put in the film to answer top questions that we couldn't put in the 90-minute presentation. We did get a grant. We're working with Erdman's publishing company to create and write this book with actual biblical scholars. so that we can provide resources for our community. So that's a big win for our impact campaign. And then this is pretty much the end of the presentation here. Just a little bit of our timeline. We started filming in 2018. We went to the conference and met Todd and Teresa Silver in January 2019. By August, Daniel Karslake had signed on from for The Bible Tells Me So. Then we went to Women Make Movies, which is our fiscal sponsor. Fiscal sponsorship is really important as well because we had all of the money donated to us. We don't owe anybody anything. And so anything that comes in, we're able to recycle back into the movie. We're able to pay our people, pay our producers. And there's no way, I mean, we would be able to pay back $650,000 at this point. The film has, I'll let you know, grossed $230,000 in ticket sales that we've been able to keep and then recycle and or pay our crew with. So it's a huge win for a six-figure return on our film, and it continues to grow every single day. It took us years to finally get any kind of recognition. We didn't get any grant until after the movie was done, even. So now that people can see the film, I've got a track record. The film is fantastic. Now we're starting to receive grants. And so we received a grant January 2024 for $50,000 from the Carpenter Foundation. We reapplied for that grant, and we've received a couple other through Evoke Media. And so my point is that don't give up. It takes time. It takes creative thinking on how to get the resources that you need. So don't be afraid to think outside the box. And then it's just a fun little slide of some of our awards. Go ahead.
Cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right. Oh, can leave that up for a little bit. Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's
You
just
wanna...
how to kind of find us, you know.
Yeah. Cool. We'll figure out how to share the slideshow if you're open to sharing the slideshow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Do you want to take it off?
You got it.
Okay, great. Okay, so we have some questions already, some of which I just have to figure out, some of which you've already answered. But I'll start off with one of my questions is, what do you... I got a sense of what you felt was the most successful. What do you feel like you would have done differently? You know, starting over, like what would you do differently now than what you did then, having learned everything that you learned?
Yeah, I would just start from everything that I've learned. You know, the social media thing I did because I had no choice. And I think it was the catalyst to our success. And so I will engage the audience right away. I'll start building conversation right away. And let me say this also, I'm also working on it's a supernatural thriller that is about racism in America with a reparations message at the end. And so I discovered while I was at the Cannes Film Festival this last week that narrative films can also qualify for fiscal sponsorship. And so my goal is to work to get as much soft money as possible that we don't have to pay back and find somebody who's interested in these themes of racism, of land grab deals, deeds, you know, stealing land from people, real history in America rooted in our supernatural script, and try to find people who want to tell that story with us. It's kind of like Get Out meets Saltburn, basically, is the next film that we're making. And so I'm going to try to utilize a lot of this stuff that I learned on the documentary film in the narrative space, including social media campaign, where we can start building, going around the history of the racism and all of this deed stealing and land grabs and stuff like that. And I haven't decided exactly how to build the social media campaign yet, but we're 100% going to do it. Get people talking. And, you know, the horror world has a built-in audience already. So we want to tap into that audience right away, get people excited. Another thing that is really good in strategizing release and marketing is in those focus groups and doing tricks within those screenings that build buzz and hype around the film, and then using that as a marketing campaign as well. So I think I will just go in without that expectation of our film's going to get picked up. And I wasn't going in with like an ego in that sense. I really was just like this, I really did just believe that this impacts the entire world. And so, um, I think what I learned that's the most important is holding on to that intellectual property, not giving it up, where if we had given it up, the film would not have reached as many people as it has, because I
Right.
wouldn't have had the time or the resources to continue the work. Without all
Right.
the revenue that's coming in and all of the choices that we made, I would have had to find another job, because this is my full-time job. And then how am I gonna, really have time to do all the marketing that I do? I spend 8 to 10 hours a day working on this still, so
And are you, speaking of that, are you your own impact producer? Someone asked about who is your team like. So outside of your publicist, who else is on the team actually doing the work of the release
yeah.
specifically?
So it's me. I'm the impact producer. We were going to work with Together Films. Sarah
Mhm.
Moses, the owner and CEO of that company, and I just saw her at the Cannes Film Festival as well. And they put together a whole proposal for us, but they wanted a lot of money to do the campaign, and so it felt, for me to raise another $100,000 to do it. And this was
Mhm.
before we decided to do the commercial release, which was the $75,000 release. It just seemed a little untouchable, and
Mhm.
also uh, you know, so we respectfully declined the offer to work with Together Films. And I just started to research what an impact film campaign is, and what it looks like. Once we received that grant in January 2024, it made it a little easier for me to green light the road trip, knowing that it's probably going to be $150,000, if we don't get the free locations to pull this off. And so we just made sure to have plenty of time for pre-production. So we started preparing for that February of 2024, and we went on the road in August of 2024. So we had a good 6 months. Now, I did have a volunteer help me. Her name's Christina, and she is just a straight woman in Chicago who believes in affirming theology and just wanted to help our film. And without Christina, we would not have been able to pull this off. I mean, she did all the emailing, and so again, finding that audience that's going to really help you. And we were just texting recently, and I'm like, honestly, there's no way we would have been able to do what we did without you. And
Right.
so, and she's completely, honored to be a part of it. And so it was
Right.
great. Yeah.
Cool. So speaking about social, I think Casey asked, did you start with your own channels or did you immediately set up 1946 channels? And then do you currently maintain both personal and film channels?
Yeah, that's a great question. I immediately started the individual 1946. So we're at 1946 across all social media platforms. That afforded a barrier between my personal life and the project, especially since we were getting so much hate from all sides. We were getting slammed from all sides. So it put a bit of a buffer for me. It also makes it very clear branding. So once, and I've done it for a couple other films that I haven't like greenlit yet. And so I have handles already built for those campaigns. So yeah, start your own social media, do everything independently. And
Mhm.
so my personal channels I've kind of fallen off of, and now I've set them on private because I get DM'd on my personal emails from people who are, I don't need Joe Schmo coming into my emails and telling me how much of a jerk I am for
Right.
challenging the Bible. So I don't really do that much on my personal anymore, but
Right.
yeah.
Right. And do you find what was the sweet spot for this particular for the number of posts per day? That was a
Um,
question from Cindy.
yeah, it really depends on the platform. I tried to do at least a post a day. Some
Mhm.
days, if I'm on the road, I just can't maintain it, and then a couple days will go by. But some days I'll do 3 or 4 posts. And some of the things that I've learned are it's good to be consistent, especially for your audience. I did not follow that path, just because I can only manage so much. So I think really, if you just have good content and you have a good video, it doesn't really matter when you post it, it's gonna go, or just do it
Right.
again, repost it again. You can repost the same video, every other week or something like that. If it doesn't hit one week, it might hit the next week,
Right. And
or at a
so
different.
a couple of people asked about the impact cost of the impact campaign, but it seems like the cost of the impact campaign was your sweat equity, pretty much.
Yes. It was a lot of sweat equity, absolutely. So the hard costs were editing fees, crew fees, gas, things like that. And it ended up being about $70,000.
Okay. And the $75,000 for the commercial campaign, that was what you're referring to. That's your traditional theatrical release before the Eventive virtual theatrical. And most of that
Correct.
money seems like that went into the publicist. But what was the other 20,000 for?
Yep.
Was that for theater rental or?
Correct. Yep. So the Prince Charles Theater was upwards to $12,000. There was a little bit of travel money in there. The theater in LA was $6,000. And we actually got the Angelica in New York City for free through our publicist. So that and made the $52,000 that we paid 42 West a little bit more worth it. And that was
Mhm.
more for a PR run in New York City.
Right, right,
It wasn't our qualifying run. But yeah,
right.
it was renting theaters and a little bit of travel.
Right, right. Okay, cool. And then in terms of audience, did you target other filmmakers or as another audience, or did you just like lean into your really core audience, which was, who you already illuminated? And that's question is uh, from Jonathan Berman.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We definitely worked with other filmmakers, whether we met them on the film festival networking circuit or people like I was saying with GLAAD. We have some connections with GLAAD, and there's a producer there, Alex Schmidt, who did a movie that's out right now called Chasing Amy, which you guys might have heard
Mhm.
of. It went to
Yeah.
Tribeca. And he also did a movie about transgender athletes. And
Hmm.
so we support each other and have been supporting each other for years. And I will post and repost. There was another movie that it did go to Netflix. It's called Pray Away, about
Hmm.
conversion therapy. And we worked with
Right,
that film as well. And I reposted some of their stuff on our socials, and that got millions of views. I mean, like,
right,
that was really helpful for them. They really appreciated it. And then, our team did go to their theatrical run in New York City as well to support. So yeah, absolutely working with other filmmakers, especially within this whole religion and Christianity, gay and
right.
Christian type thing was really beneficial. So there was another movie that came out from Free Mom Hugs called The Mama Bears. We worked closely with them. There was a conversion therapy movie. There were about 3 movies that year that came out that had similar themes. So yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And then did you find crowdfunding or the special fundraising events more successful?
It was kind of mixed. The crowdfunding, we brought in over 6 figures. And so I think it was kind of like in thirds. If we look at,
Right,
the individual donors, the focus group stuff, and then the GoFundMe, it
right.
it really just kind
You
of,
did
yeah.
focus groups. Were the focus groups also for working on the edit of the film, or they strictly were fundraising?
Nope, it was for editing. So we had questionnaires for everyone. We spend time with the audience afterward to really listen to feedback. But we
Hmm.
did put people in the room that we know could help us as well with money.
Right.
So we picked
That's great.
cities where we had resources, and then, okay, great, invite people out. We had a couple hundred people show up. And I mean, in Nashville, the 50 grand that we got was actually from a church. Can you believe it? Yeah. And so I was like, wait, what, you're giving us 50 grand? Like, so thank you, Grace Point Church in Nashville.
That's amazing. Yeah, I've never heard of people. I'm a big advocate of pre-screenings and for the edit of the film, but I've never heard of anyone using them also for fundraising.
Yeah.
So,
Yep,
great.
have,
Yeah.
drinks or a little reception afterward, Q&A and things like that. So, I mean,
Right.
to that end, honestly, when we were almost on the film at the beginning of 2022, and we did submit to Tribeca,
Hmm.
and the film was not finished yet, and it had black screens on it that said animation to come or interview to be filmed. And my editor was like, "Are you nuts? What are you doing?" Like, and I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
the film's good, and I want to get in." And we ended up getting in. But then we had a partner at that time, a major partner. So we were with a company that I'm not allowed to mention per my NDA and our dissolvement. And they were supposed to sell the film, package the trailer, and help with the graphics and animation. We gave them all of the assets, and 2 months they re-edited my movie.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they knew better than me, huh? And
Mm-hmm.
so we ended that relationship real quick. And that's another reason to have a very good lawyer to make sure that you're protected. I told my lawyer what was going on, and they're in massive breach of contract. And so once
Right.
I knew I had all the power, I just started ignoring this person, because I mean, we had spent years together building this relationship, and I had a very clear vision for the film. I had a very clear tone for the film, non-threatening, conversational, engaging, academic, journalistic. We're not making a propaganda film where we're so hurt by the church and we won't be erased. It's like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, and so we had to get out of that relationship, and unfortunately we had to say no. But
Yeah.
I now know programmers at Tribeca, and I'm actually having a meeting with one of them in the upcoming weeks to talk about my next film that is a similar message, but specifically working for the transgender community and the oppression that they're experiencing through religious oppression. So the
Yeah.
working title for that film is called Eight Genders, the
Mhm.
Erased History of the Other, because 2000 years ago, the Jewish rabbis were talking about 8 different genders in the Talmud. And we know that other cultures recognize two-spirit people. These are not new conversations. And
Right.
so we try to help as much as we can. We know that we're not going to really, again, no pun intended, penetrate the evangelical crowd and get them to actually move away from their dogmatic point of views. But we know there's enough people in what we call the movable middle who just need their head and their heart to align with some of this research and be able to accept the data over their dogma to move with us more towards love and inclusion and away from these extremist ideologies that hurt people, really. So
Well, actually, I think that's a great point to end on. I want to thank you for being with us.